Today, Princess Diana lent her high-profile support to try to stop these runaways from becoming permanently homeless.
The Princess of Wales felt not the slightest apprehension about her visit to the Middlesex Hospital and its AIDS ward.
Never on holiday with Dodie fired. Three British papers have paid £500,000 for them. Other publications worldwide are eagerly doing deals.
Fairy tales usually end at this point with the simple phrase, "They lived happily ever after."
The Princess of Wales was a new kind of royal. A new word began to appear in the media's vocabulary, die-mania.
The Princess of Wales has agreed to Prince Charles's request for a divorce.
In some small way, I have been of service in return.
The Princess of Wales has died in a car accident.
At Buckingham Palace, telegrams of condolence have been arriving from leaders around the world.
I wanted just to be with you, to show you that you are not forgotten.
Diana did things differently. There was a memo came from Buckingham Palace. Diana, when you're in public, please wear a hat and please wear gloves, because you're touching the public and you might catch something. And I'm not too sure about you touching those people with HIV and AIDS. Are you sure you're safe? We lived in a world of ignorance. We lived in a world where people were not educated. They didn't know. The princess introduced me to the first person dying with HIV and AIDS. I didn't know anything about it until she showed me that world. She would sit and hold people's hands and counsel them. So life with Diana was very different.
The Princess of Wales felt not the slightest apprehension about her visit to the Middlesex Hospital and its AIDS ward, according to press reports. All speculation had centred on whether she would wear gloves when shaking hands with the staff and patients on the new ward. But as she entered, to the delight of the staff, she clearly wasn't wearing gloves. And she shook hands with all the nurses, doctors, and all 10 patients on the ward. She stayed more than an hour, but was not filmed with any of the patients. They were worried about public exposure. Only one agreed to be photographed.
Well, I think the princess actually helped get that message across by the mere fact that she wasn't wearing gloves and the mere fact that she shook hands with the patients and myself.
HIV does not make people dangerous to know, so you can shake their hands and give them a hug. Heaven knows they need it. What's more, you can share their homes, their workplaces, their playgrounds, and their toys. We all need to be alert to the special needs of those for whom AIDS is the last straw in an already heavy burden of discrimination and misfortune.
Being such a compassionate personality, I think it's really important to remember that Diana really put an emphasis on coming into contact with the public and relating to them and creating a bond, and removing the gloves is symbolic of that, in that she liked to touch people, she liked to be involved with them. And there's a picture of her in 1991 where she's shaking hands with an AIDS patient, which was significant insofar as it helped dispel a lot of the misconceptions around AIDS at the time. And it was something that was a marked departure from what we'd seen previously in the royal family.
And that's what she wanted to do. And the Queen then turned around and said, well, you know, why don't you do something nice? Well, that was a complete blow-up for her, because that made her even more determined to get involved with it. And there's, you know, thereafter, Diana's involvement with the AIDS charitable trusts, of which there are many, was vitally important to where we are today, where there is now, you know, a complete, almost total recovery of people dying from AIDS. You know, that early initiative of Diana, who was, you know, instrumental in fundraising, you know, hundreds of thousands because of who she was, and her visiting AIDS hospices, which I went to with her, you know, to raise the awareness of the problems and the need for research.
And then, of course, she took William and Harry to the London Lighthouse to see people suffering and dying with HIV and AIDS. Invaluable. Look at them now, carrying on their mother's work in those fields which she pioneered, in those fields which the rest of the royal family wouldn't dare touch. And I remember the Queen saying, "But Diana, you must wear gloves. You might catch whatever these people have." I think it's just born of ignorance, really, because they knew nothing better. They weren't educated. The princess was.
We have a battle on our hands. It has to be waged on two major fronts: prevention and cure. As far as prevention is concerned, parents and teachers are in the front line. As a parent myself, I'm only too aware of the responsibility this implies in terms of the kind of upbringing best suited to encourage the child to say no.
She also boosted the morale of the soldiers serving in Northern Ireland. She went to Londonderry to visit the Royal Hampshire Regiment, one of the regiments of which she was Colonel-in-Chief. Even in full combat gear, the princess managed to look glamorous, providing a welcome relief for the men used to the daily dangers of serving in the troubled province. Although an obvious target herself, the princess seemed to shrug off any fears. During the time of the Gulf War, she was there to give support to the wives and children of servicemen fighting in the desert. And she chatted to the fighting men who would soon be on their way to take up arms against the Iraqis. She gave great comfort to many during frightening times. And it wasn't only the British troops who idolized her. Out in the sands of Kuwait, the American forces had also made her their pin-up.
She had to have a reason to work, and the homeless was another case in point.
For Diana, Princess of Wales, leprosy and the need to rid the world of the stigma that blights its sufferers has become something of a personal crusade. Addressing an international conference in London this morning, she called on people to show greater awareness and perhaps, like her, extend a caring hand.
It's always been my concern to touch people with leprosy, trying to show in a simple action that they are not reviled, nor are we repulsed.
She had to have something to do as a princess. And, you know, for her, yeah, the fun bits of the supermarkets, you know, walking down the streets of Glasgow, whatever, shaking people's hands was great. But getting involved in these major issues of AIDS, the homeless, and so forth was very important to her.
The princess's popularity gave the royal family new blood. It gave new blood in lots of different ways. Of course, with William and Harry arriving, it gave the royal family a new line.
But it wasn't always so high-powered. She twice flew to Pakistan to support Imran Khan's cancer hospital, and it was here that a photograph of a caring Diana cradling a sick child was to spark her last and controversial press interview. That photograph inspired the French daily Le Monde, and the interview started another controversy.
In most circumstances, when the man on the street, if you like, meets royalty, it's in a situation that's planned, it's corralled, and you stand there and you'll be there, and somebody will come along and you'll shake your hand, don't say anything, you either bob or you curtsy, and then you move on, and that's your lasting impact of royalty. And that wasn't Diana. You know, Diana would come along, this shaking of the hand and this bobbing nonsense. You know, she would often say, "Don't call me ma'am, call me Diana," you know, and engage them in a conversation. And I remember one incident in Manchester, and we were walking down some street in Manchester that had been terraced off with these metal railings, And we're walking down and she's chatting away, and suddenly she sees this elderly woman with a walking stick about 3 people back. And she said, "What are you doing over there?" And this sort of woman, with this sort of manky neck, said, "Oh, she said, I want to say hello to you." She said, "Oh, just a minute." And got this. She said, "Get that policeman, Ken, and get that lady to come through here." So the lady, came through, and started chatting away there. And she said, "Look, you ought to get a warmer coat than that." So sort of suddenly, out of nowhere, you're getting this sort of princess that's now more concerned about somebody else in the crowd than herself. This was typical Diana. I saw that on so many occasions because she felt it was part of her duty rather than just turn up, shake and push a few people back.
Especially now, as Christmas brings its own painful stresses to so many people in need. The sick, the old, the handicapped and the homeless, the lonely, the confused, and the simply unloved, who are needing your help more than ever.
And that's a point to which I often refer, because that one moment of humanity changed my life. And I saw the princess in a different light. I saw her as beautiful inside as she was on the outside. Life with Diana was 24/7. My wife said, "There are 3 people in my marriage too, because Diana is always there." She used to say, "She's your baby." I said, "Yes, she's my baby. She needs me. She needs me to be there." My wife had 2 children. The princess had no one. Her children were away at boarding school. She had no husband. Occasionally, she had a male companion, but they came and they went. I was responsible for that too. I was a go-between. I was the one that went out with my car, brought people back to Kensington Palace in the back seat of my car underneath a blanket, just to give the princess some love. All she was ever looking for was to be loved. She used to say to me, "All I ever want, Paul, is a man to put their arms around me and say, 'I love you.' That's not too much to ask, is it?" And that's what she was searching for. Towards the end of her life, of course, she found her soulmate. Her soulmate was Hasnat Khan, the heart surgeon.
Diana, when she came to Pakistan, this was a country that she had fond memories of, wasn't it?
Yes, I think she enjoyed her time here. She really liked the days she spent here, I think.
And meeting your family, that must have been a special moment for her and for them.
I think it definitely was for my family, and I think she enjoyed the afternoon tea with them. I think that's a long time ago now, 1996, I think.
I remember the day the princess met Hasnat Khan. She came back from the hospital, having visited children on the ward, and she said the most astonishing things happened to me today. As we sat down, she told me about this meeting. She said I was going up in the elevator and somebody put their foot into the elevator door as it was closing, and it opened again. And there he was. This gorgeous man was staring at me. Well, who wouldn't stare at Princess Diana? Surrounded by a gaggle of students, Hasnat was on his rounds around the hospital. And there he was, face to face with the princess for the first time. And she said, I knew I would have a relationship with him. Our chemistry was so strong that I knew. Of course, their relationship was nearly 2 years in the making. 2 years, no one knew about him. Again, I was the go-between. I would bring him into the palace. I'd ask chef to cook dinner for 2. I'd wait dinner for 2. I'd make sure they were comfortable before I went home. And in the morning, I'd take him back in the boot of my car to the hospital. So the police never saw him. The chefs never saw him. The maids never saw him. No one saw him, just me.
How angry are you at some of the things that you've read over the years and things that have been said? I mean, they must be quite painful when people deal with something that is so intensely personal and make mistakes and get things wrong.
It is very annoying. It's but what you can do, you can't do anything. It's when you just read. The best thing what I thought we could do is stop reading about it. And if I would read something and that would be contradictory to the events or the reality, then obviously you get upset, especially when it relates to what my father said this, which I know isn't true, or my friend something said this, and I know it, categorically it wasn't true, or an onlooker said that, which could be any freelance photographer, or we took an opinion of a psychologist saying that the body language is such. Or, obviously these are annoying things and they hurt. But then the media doing their job. And
you were saying outside, in terms of your memory, Diana, the normalcy of the person is what struck you, wasn't it?
I found a very normal person, yes. We all have our drawbacks and qualities. I found her as, as someone who just met her, I found her a very normal person. A normal person with great qualities, and of course there's some, personal drawbacks like we have, like habits, for example. And I think she did a great work for the country and for people all over the world, not just from United Kingdom, not just for United Kingdom, for everyone. I think that's very important.
And in fact, Diana introduced William and Harry to Hasnat Khan, because in the princess's eyes, Hasnat was the man she was going to marry. So better the boys get used to him.
But he was very, very worried that the press would get hold of it, and he couldn't deal with it.
I don't know how she'll find a husband, but I always imagined she'd end up with someone older, very powerful and rich, perhaps a sort of Onassis-type figure that really could look after her and whisk her away from everything.
I hope you can find it in your hearts to understand and to give me the time and space that has been lacking in recent years.
Hasnat Khan had been the princess's companion for over 2 years. Nobody knew about Hasnat Khan. That was not played out on the world stage. Whereas, after they'd broken up, the princess was invited to the south of France by the Mohammed Al Fayeds. She met Dodi Al Fayed.
Diana and Dodi met long before 1997. They met at various events, film premieres, at the polo, at the horse show, the sort of places that people of their kind would meet at. When they actually fell in love in the summer of 1997, they were already friends. And then, of course, they were together in the south of France, and a relationship which was already established became a deeper and closer relationship. And when they came back to London, they'd already made arrangements to get in touch with each other. They met and they started seeing each other, and it all went on from there.
did you know that the romance of the princess and Dodi Al-Fayed was 30 days from beginning to end? It only lasted 30 days. I spoke to her regularly when she was away. Have you seen Hasnat? I said, yes, I went for a drink with him last night. What does he think of me being here in the south of France with Dodi Al-Fayed? Well, he's not too pleased. Has he seen the pictures in the papers? Yes, he has, because you know his routine. You know every morning he goes to the corner shop and sees the press. You know that. And I know that's what you're doing. You're manipulating the world's media by having these pictures taken to show Hasnat who you're with. It's sort of a... Are you jealous? Do you mind? Do you care? Are you bothered? That's what Diana was saying to Hasnat Khan through those pictures in the world's media. And of course, Hasnat was bothered.
I knew Dodi, and he was probably one of the most charming people you could ever meet. And he's always so rather cool. Had an American accent, beautifully dressed, and he treated Diana like the princess she was. Nobody else had treated her like that. I mean, with Hasnat Khan, she had to sort of hide him at the back of her car, and they had to, they mostly ate in, or if they went out, she was in disguise. But with Dodi, she could show herself off. I think she liked him very much. I don't know if she was in love with him, but she was in love with the idea of him. I think Diana wanted to get married again, and she wanted to have another child. Again, I think getting married again probably was a bit of a fantasy. Certainly getting married to the doctor that she was in love with was a fantasy, because it would never have worked out. It couldn't have worked for him.
I didn't find out until recently that he called her the day before she died on her mobile phone. He called her to try and patch up their relationship. Had she returned to London, I truly believe the romance between Hasnat Khan and the princess would have been rekindled. It was too strong. It was too deep. They were true soulmates.
But she did want to get married again, very much so. In a way, I think she wanted to find someone that could work with her. In a way that it was what she'd hoped for when she married Prince Charles.
I said to the princess, when are you coming home? I'm coming home on Sunday, Paul. I'm just bored. I'm on this boat. It's freezing cold downstairs. It's boiling hot on deck. I'm sending these pictures out and nobody's coming back to me. I'm having no communication. I need to come home. But the only way home is on the Harrods jet. The only way I can get home is via Paris, because Dodi has to go to Paris to do some business for his father. How is he with you? Oh, he's very spoiling. He's very generous, the princess said. He's given me a necklace, some earrings. He's given me a watch. I said, you know what's coming next, don't you?